You know Gray Bar for electrical parts, but there's one more thing you may not be thinking of us for that can help maximize your next project's total value. Our pre-project planning services are designed to help you win the bid, save on labor costs, and keep your installers productive across your entire build. The sooner you call us, the better. Because when we're there from the beginning, we can anticipate your needs and help you solve problems before they become problems. Yep, Gray Bar does that.
Into the latest edition of the Show Before the Show podcast, the official podcast of minor league baseball, as we dive further and further into the month of June of 2022. My name is Tyler Mon. Sam Dykstra is in New York City. What's going on, dude?
Hey, Tyler. Yeah, this is going to be a little bit of a different episode just because there's so many moving parts. Not just Ben, who will join me later for a segment. Obviously, he's been gallivanting around my native New England and hanging out with our pal Josh Jackson in Maine. So we'll touch base with him in a little bit. But yeah, you're going to Texas this week?
I am.
I was going to say I'm going to Brooklyn, which is literally what I do every day of my life. But I will be at the Cyclones game on Thursday. So our schedule is getting thrown around a little bit, but nothing wrong with that. That's just our busy season, like we always say.
Exactly. I'm not going to Texas for work. Going for a wedding. A friend of the girlfriend is getting married in Austin, so we are road tripping down there. My girlfriend is also from Texas, so we're gonna go see her family, and probably melt alive because it's gonna be like 105 degrees. So that'll be cool. Should be fun. But we are. I'm attempting to convince her one of the stops on our way to and fro is Amarillo. And I'm attempting to convince her to catch a Sod Poodles game one of the nights that we're going to stop in Amarillo. So possibly next Friday. They are home, I believe, against Tulsa. So I may get a chance to see some Blaze Alexander and some of the other top prospects on that Amarillo Sod Poodles team.
Corbin Carroll, man.
Corbin Carroll also. Blaze Alexander was fresh in my brain because he's a member of the latest edition of the Pipeline Prospect Team of the Week this week. And yeah, Corbin Carroll will be there. The Tulsa Drillers, also a fairly stacked roster, although Michael Bush obviously has moved up, but Jacob Amaya is still there. So we'll see. We'll see if I can swing through. If anything else, I'm going to make her let me stop and buy a hat.
Yeah, right. And you also, if you need to sell her, just say like it's going to be the most hitter-friendly game you're going to see.
Yeah.
And you guys live in Denver, which I know is saying something.
Coors.
But they should have like a Hodgetown cheer.
Right.
Because the way the ball sails out of that ballpark, it's not just because high elevation or whatever. It's because they built the ballpark and the wind is crazy in Amarillo.
It's very old school Cal League.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a little Lancaster feeling.
Yeah, so when you're looking at Blaze Alexander stats and Corbin Carroll stats, I implore you to also check out like their splits because sometimes they can get a little crazy. In Corbin Carroll's case, yeah, he's actually doing great both home and the road this year for Amarillo. But yeah, you can get some lopsided games in that one.
Yeah, so we'll see. If anybody is tuned in with the Sod Poodles, feel free to send an email or something to Guilt Trip, my girlfriend, and letting us come to a game. I think it'll be fantastic. So thanks for hanging out with us on this week's edition of the Show Before the Show. As Sam noted, it's going to be a little bit different this week, but we will hear Sam and Ben catch up here in just a little while. Josh Jackson will swing by for Ghost of the Miners coming up a little while later. And before we dive in, thanks for hanging out with us. You can get in touch with the show, podcast at milb.com. We haven't gotten an email in a while. If you've got like a burning question about the minor leagues or about the art of this podcast, which I can't imagine you will, send us an email, podcast at milb.com. The only emails that we've gotten lately are like, would it be okay if I sent you a list of our catalog categories for bath mats? It's not really exciting. So let us know your questions, your thoughts, your comments, your concerns And if you need a good deal on bath mats, because we continually get hit up on things like that. You can also find us on Twitter. He's at Sam Dykstra, MILB. I am at Tyler Mon, Ben Hill at Ben's Biz, and Josh Jackson at Josh Jackson, MILB. And let's kick it off. 3 strikes for this week's episode of the show. Before the show, unfortunately, we kick off with a bummer of injury news as the top pitching prospect in the game of baseball from the Baltimore Orioles organization, Grayson Rodriguez, has been shut down for at least a few months, if not the remainder of the season. That is a huge bummer. It is a grade 2 lat strain. It looked like Grayson Rodriguez was maybe 1 start away from his big league debut. He was fantastic in his last outing for AAA Norfolk in the Baltimore Orioles system. Instead, Orioles GM Mike Elias said he probably wouldn't be back to action until September, or at a point even later that would force the Orioles to just look at 2023. It was the final start at his AAA stop that put Grayson Rodriguez out of commission, but he had been outstanding so far this year, a 2.09 ERA in 11 starts at AAA. This sucks, quite simply, and especially for Orioles fans who I think were, kind of starting to feel like, all right, maybe there's a little bit of optimism here. I mean, obviously there have been the struggles and the bumps and bruises for guys like Adley Rutschman. But, seeing him and somebody like Grayson Rodriguez at the big league level makes you feel like the next wave is at least here. Now, one of those big pieces of that puzzle is delayed for at least a while, if not until next season.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny hearing them talk about it. It's not funny. I mean, it's kind of sad. But when they're saying, like, we're trying to get him ready for the opening day rotation in 2023, which basically makes it sound like he was major league ready, like you were saying before, Tyler. He may have been 1 start away, but the way they were talking about preparation for him for 2023, it's like, all right, if we want him in our opening day rotation next year, and that's coming off an injury, that basically means he was major league ready now. And obviously the proof is in the pudding there. You can see how well he did. You can see how well he was holding up, going deeper into starts and deeper into starts. I don't think any of that caused an injury. It's just kind of a freak right lat strain, grade 2. Sometimes that shuts down guys for weeks or months, like you said. And if that gets him to September, I mean, it's just the timing of it is what's the unfortunate part. If this happened in March, it would be unfortunate then because he'd be missing the beginning of the season, but maybe he'd be getting back now and trying to push for a major league debut. So the fact that this happened basically right square in the middle of the season is really unfortunate for Grayson Rodriguez. Just for O's fans, I know O's fans were super excited about him coming up. He was the real deal. Pitching is kind of down across the minor leagues right now in terms of top pitching prospects, but he was by far the best. And you could even make a case maybe he was the best prospect in baseball before the injury. I mean, we're getting to a point now where Adley Rutschman is in the majors. Riley Green is number 2 right now and will ascend to number 1 whenever Adley Rutschman graduates. But like Grayson Rodriguez is right there, I think, with Riley Green in terms of prospect status. So we're probably still going to be talking about Grayson Rodriguez as a prospect going into next year. And it's going to be a lot of ifs. It's if he's healthy, when he's healthy. This is what the fastball looks like. It's upper 90s. The changeup is incredibly good. It's plus. He's got a curveball and a slider that work well, but we just won't have seen it. I almost wonder if we're going to get to a point where he's a candidate for the Arizona Fall League, maybe even. You think back to last year and Mackenzie Gore pitched in the Arizona Fall League and he didn't have injury problems. He had delivery and control problems, but
missed a lot of time.
Was sent back to a complex to work on all that stuff, pitched in the AFL, looked close to his normal self, not all the way there. And now look at Mackenzie Gore at the major league level. He's one of the best pitchers in the National League, never mind a rookie of the year contender. So, if they do decide to hold him out for the rest of the minor league season, part of me hopes that the AFL is an option for him. So we get to at least see him a little bit because he's too exciting a pitcher to go that long without seeing if he is healthy. And that's a big if.
Yeah, that is a huge bummer. And obviously our best wishes to Grayson Rodriguez for getting better here in this 2022 season, which moves us along to strike 2. And that is the open of rookie level play, complex league play, which kicked off this week, the Arizona Complex League, the Florida Complex League, and the Dominican Summer League as well. If you are somebody who is new to minor league baseball or doesn't remember entirely how this all shook out, this time 3 years ago, we would have been discussing the start of short season play in the Northwest League and the Pioneer League and the Appalachian League, the New York Penn League. Not the case anymore, as rookie ball now really is limited just to those complex level circuits. But there's a lot of talent there. And it's something where now the youngest prospects pretty much all centralized in those 3 leagues. There isn't quite the same diaspora across, 7 different leagues. So Sam, give us kind of an overview of where we are with the ACL and the FCL, especially.
Yeah, well, one that I'm really keeping my eye on is in the ACL, and because there is one top 100 prospect who is opening the season in a complex league, and that is number 83 overall prospect, Christian Hernandez, a shortstop of the Cubs organization. We've been high on Christian Hernandez since he signed in January 2021, signed for $3 million that year. All 5 of his tools grade out to at least above average. His run tool is plus, his arm tool is plus. He can be a good hitter. He can be a good power hitter, which is saying something for a shortstop prospect. What I loved was obviously he's going to have some hype to him. He homered in his first Arizona Complex League at bat. So it just immediately you knew all eyes were going to be on him, and he performed. Not going to look too much into it, but it does speak to his power potential and what he can do down there in the ACL. Last year, he played in the Dominican Summer League, as many new signings did. He batted .285, .398, .424, finished with an .822 OPS. In 47 games, had 5 homers and 21 steals. So obviously the groundwork was there last year in the DSL. It's why we're so high on him. The Cubs are so high on him, giving, like I said, a $3 million bonus to him coming into the year. If we're looking at the FCL, one guy I got my eye on just because he's so fascinating as both a prospect and a kind of backstory is Bubba Chandler of the Pittsburgh Pirates system. He's number 9. They're number 9 prospect right now. They took him in the 3rd round last year. You might remember him as a guy who was set to become a quarterback at Clemson. And was basically talked out of that with, again, a $3 million bonus from the Pirates. They list him on the FCL roster as a 2-way player. The Pirates have talked about doing that with him, giving him an opportunity to play 2 ways. It's something I think it's part of the reason why he signed. He can be a shortstop. He can be a right-handed pitcher. I think he might have a better chance to be a 2-way player than a Mason Wynn. Mason Wynn, St. Louis Cardinals system, why I'm very high on, and has done really well this year with the bat, but it seems like they've gone away from him from pitching, even though he has the best infield arm in minor league baseball. It seems like with Chandler, the Pirates are going to give him a longer leash. Now we'll see how that's going to work out. It might be at a point where, hey, you're too athletic to just have you pitch every 5th day. We want to keep you in the field as well. Looking at his scouting grades, the fastball is plus, the curveball is above average. He's got a slider and changeup that could be good. It seems like he has a higher ceiling on the mound, but that's going to be fascinating to see how those guys work out. His role and how often he pitches and how often he plays the field. I love to hear about it. I mean, again, we talked about Mason Wynn. We had Hunter Green a couple of years ago, who people thought could be a 2-way player when he entered the Red system, and that didn't end up working out because he threw the ball too dang hard, and now he's a major league pitcher. So obviously there's 2 different routes that this could go, but going to be following him pretty closely for sure as he gets going down there in the Sunshine State.
Which moves us to strike 3 this week, a check-in on the minor league home run chase as we hit the month of June, and guys are mostly approaching the 50-game mark played across full season leagues and levels. And it's really right now a 3-player race for the minor league home run lead. Kerry Carpenter of the Detroit Tigers organization, Moises Gomez of the St. Louis Cardinals, and Matt Gorski of the Pittsburgh Pirates. Those guys with 20, 19, and 18 home runs so far this season. The race for this, not always inclusive of just highly ranked prospects. And that is one of the things that is kind of most fascinating about the home run chase every year. In fact, among these 3 guys, only one of them is a ranked prospect, and that's Moises Gomez, who is the number 30 prospect in the top 30 in the St. Louis Cardinals organization. But Sam, give us the lowdown. Kerry Carpenter last year, 112 games with Erie. He hit 15 homers. He's got 20 through 48 games so far this year to lead the minor leagues.
Yeah, I mean, if we're handicapping who I think of these three is the favorite to win the whole thing, I think it's probably going to be Moises Gomez, and not just because he's a ranked prospect, like you said. Even though, I oversee the Cardinals' top 30 for MLB Pipeline, and I moved him in there just because he's off to such a torrid start. But you think back to who he was in the Rays system, power has always been his big deal. I mean, the Rays were very high on his power. There was a time where it was debatable about who had the most power in the system, and he was right there with Randy Arozarena, even Arozarena coming off his really powerful postseason in 2020. So the power has always been there for Moises Gomez. It seems like he's kind of toned down his swing a little bit. It's not as violent. He doesn't have such a huge leg lift, which is what I think led to a lot of the strikeouts before. You look at Kerry Carpenter, he's repeating a level with 20 home runs. That's great what he's doing, already exceeding what he did last year in Erie. But how sustainable is this? Especially if he does move up to Toledo, he's going to be challenged. We're already seeing that with Matt Gorski. Matt Gorski went off at High A Greensboro. I believe he only has one home run through about a dozen games in Altoona. So he's being challenged at Double A. Yes, you can make the case that Moises Gomez is probably, earning a AAA debut at some point soon, and he'll be challenged by AAA pitchers. But at least he has the track record of power that these other two don't, at least elite power. So if the elimination of that huge leg kick is good enough for him to make consistent consistent contact more often, I think Gomez certainly has all the tools to win out this race eventually. What is he going to finish with? Is he going to beat out MJ Melendez's total of 41 from last year? I think he's on pace to do that right now. Again, getting called up to AAA is going to cause its own problems and, could slow him a bit. And he did slow up in May compared to April. But June, he's back off to a powerful start. I think he's slugging 700 in June so far through the first week. So out of these three, I think I trust Moises Gomez most so far. Tyler, do you have an opinion on that?
I would say probably the same with Moises Gomez, somebody who has just proven himself throughout his adjustments, which is always a challenging thing to do. And, last year he struggled at Montgomery when he was still in the Rays system. And now to be back at Double A and be doing the things that he's doing, I would say that probably sticks out most to me. And like you said, I think with Matt Gorski, the challenge is going to be, can he flip the script on what he is seeing now in Double A? 17 homers in 37 games at Greensboro, just one, as you noted, with Altoona so far. Kerry Carpenter, taking nothing away from Kerry Carpenter, he's been really impressive too. But Moises Gomez just seems like he has the most upside. And one thing that I will say, one guy to not sleep on, however, is last week's extraordinarily entertaining interview. Vinny Pasquantino in the Kansas City Royals organization, he's got 15. So he's right outside of the hunt. There are a couple of guys with 16 homers and then a crowd with 15. Don't sleep on our boy, Vinny. And if you missed the interview, go back and listen because it is so much fun.
Yeah, I think the bigger question is going to become and Vinny, I know, has been a little cold in the last week. Not our fault. I want to say that.
The show before the show bump.
I know, right?
/curse.
/curse. I think we have more of a bump than a curse. I want to put that on the record. But
I would agree with that.
But the only thing is, my question is, can he catch those other guys before he eventually gets to Kansas City? That's the problem. We go through this every year when we try to predict the home run leader for the minor leagues in our predictions. It's like, you don't want to take somebody at AAA because if they do lead the minors in home runs, they're probably going to get called up unless it's an MJ Melendez situation in which they move up to AAA towards the end of the year. So Vinny, if he gets close to these guys and hits 5 homers in the next week, there are already allowed calls for him to go to Kansas City as it is. If that happens, it would almost be malpractice for Kansas City not to call him up. So it might be like, where does Vinny rank when he finally gets that call? And we know he has his phone on him. If you heard that interview last week, he always has his phone on, just in case. Yeah.
Always, unless he forgets it in his car, and then his girlfriend has to go get it while saying, "Why do you need your phone?" Man, that conversation was so much fun. Go back and listen to last week's show if you did not listen to our interview with Vinny Pasquantino. And that'll do it for 3 Strikes on this week's episode of the show before the show. As noted, a little bit different style show. So Sam is going to be back with Ben Hill coming up here in a little bit. And then we'll hear from our good pal, Josh Jackson. And moving along, show before the show continues next. Hi, everybody. It's Sam again. Just jumping in just to let you guys know that we recorded 3 Strikes on Wednesday. This is a podcast that normally comes out on Friday, so there was always the chance that news would break in between recording time and publishing time. guess what? That happened. Late Wednesday night, we heard news that number 4 overall prospect, Gabriel Moreno, was being called up by the Toronto Blue Jays. Now, as of right now, we don't exactly know what type of role Moreno is going to play, how much playing time he's going to get, or indeed when he's going to debut. But the Blue Jays have made it clear that he will be called up for this weekend's series against Detroit. So he's going to be a catching option for them. Obviously, with a prospect of his stature, you don't just call him up to be a backup. They're calling him up to get some sort of playing time. It's going to be interesting to see how they make it work between him and Alejandro Kirk, who has been one of the best catchers in the American League this year, both from an offensive and defensive perspective. But from Moreno's perspective, you look at what he has been and what he has been this season at AAA Buffalo and why he is one of the best prospects in baseball. He has one of the best hit tools in all of the minor leagues. At the time he was called up, he was batting .324 through 36 games at Buffalo. That was the 9th best average among AAA qualifiers. Since his breakout season last year in 2021, there have been 162 catchers to get at least 300 plate appearances. He leads them all with a .345 average over that span. And he's third with a 151 WRC plus. That's actually higher than the WRC plus for both MJ Melendez and Adley Rutschman, 2 top 100 prospects who are also in the major leagues right now. Moreno this season with Buffalo has thrown out more than half of attempted base stealers. He leads AAA catchers in that regard. He's also ranked second in all of minor league baseball in caught stealing rate. He's an athletic catcher. He's a former infielder. He was signed as an infielder out of his native Venezuela a couple of years ago for only $25,000. But that athleticism has obviously transferred over to his work behind the plate. He's got a good arm. He's got quick actions behind the plate, which I think lead to, helping him out, getting those caught stealings by the bunches. But I'm fascinated to see how the Charlie Montoyo and the Jays are going to make this work between him and Kirk. They're both right-handed options. They're both good defensive catchers, as I mentioned. It could be that Moreno is going to catch 2 times a week just to get used to certain pitchers and get to know the Toronto staff. That's a big deal for such a young catcher as him. But like I said up top, the Jays would not bring him up if they were not going to play him. He is too good. He needs consistent playing time to get better. We expect that to come starting this weekend with a series versus Detroit. Right now, the Blue Jays are about half dozen games behind the Yankees in the AL East, but they have aspirations to win a World Series. If they are going to hunt down the Yankees in the AL East, they're going to need all hands on deck. Adding Moreno is a big piece of that. So good news on the prospect front there. Just wanted to chirp in here real quick, give you guys an update on Gabriel Moreno and the fact that you can find him this weekend on the major league side for the Toronto Blue Jays. All right, now coming up next is a conversation between myself and Benjamin Hill, who is back from the road. Well, we said it was going to be a little bit of a different episode this week just because of so many moving parts. And speaking of moving parts, we have moved the podcast a little bit. Normally we record this part from our offices in Manhattan. Currently we are basically beachside in Brooklyn at Coney Island. We are about, what would you say, Ben, about 100 feet foul. We're just to the left of the left field pole here at Maimonides Park in Coney Island, home of the Brooklyn Cyclones. Ben and I will be at the Cyclones game here tonight on Thursday. Sorry, we're sending out the bat signal a little late, so you guys can't come join us, but we are going to be at a minor league stadium. But before we do that, I want to bring in Ben, who is back from the road from his trips through New England. Hi, Ben.
Hey, Sam. Great to be here. Yeah, we are in an alleyway with a ballpark on one side of us and a roller coaster on the other side of us. And that roller coaster is not the iconic Cyclone roller coaster, which is a few blocks further down. It is the Thunderbolt, which if you've never ridden the Thunderbolt in Coney Island, it has one of the most extreme inclines and then vertical drops I've ever experienced. And I would recommend it because we are all about experiences on this podcast and in life.
And I'm glad you said that, just in case anybody hears screaming happening behind us. It's nothing bad is happening. It's people just enjoying their Thursday afternoon.
Well, it'd be a good time to murder us right now because no one will be the wiser and the people will be hearing this, us going to our deaths. Well, no, let's keep it light. Let's keep it light.
No, things are fun at Coney Island. We don't need to be painting that picture. But like I said, you are back from the road. You took a jaunt through New England, starting out earlier this week, or actually last weekend, in Hartford. When we were talking to you last week, you were on your way to Hartford. You were in Western Massachusetts, going down to Hartford. Just take us back through Dunkin' Donuts Park and what stood out to you on this return visit for you to see the Yard Goats.
Yeah, I first visited Hartford, Dunkin' Donuts Park in 2017. That was the inaugural season of that ballpark. And so it was nice to go back 5 years later and just experience it. Not anew, but again, with a 5-year gap. I was there for a Copa night where they played as the Chivos, the Los Chivos, which is a literal translation of goat. There are actual literal goats in the ballpark, led by one named Fancy Pants. It is a local farm that for a lot of the games brings it out. They have a pen in the outfield, so I do love the commitment to the goat theme throughout the ballpark. Did meet up with a designated eater, and the number one thing is they now have a spicy donut chicken sandwich, and it's a honey sriracha glazed chicken on a glazed donut with a little munchkin on top. And there was no graceful way to eat that. It was really sticky and messy, but a really impressive item. And as you might know, if you follow minor league baseball, if you've been to Hartford, it's a beautiful ballpark, still one of the newer ones, not just in the Eastern League, but in all of minor league baseball. But it feels like it could be a AAA park just in the way it's laid out, with the amenities, with the room to move. And I just really enjoyed being there again, and got some good material and looking forward to writing it up.
Yeah, and you mentioned how the food has slightly changed. What else has maybe changed about that area? Because when you went there for the first time, it was Hartford just getting to be a minor league city again, and Dunkin' Donuts Park really opening up, and everything was new. And now they've had a few years to settle in. Was there anything else that stood out to you that had changed?
Well, in the park itself, not so much. No, I don't think there's been major changes to the park because it's still, fairly new. But one thing is that park opened in 2017, and if you may recall, very controversial. A lot of arguing between the developer and the city. It was actually delayed for a year. The team spent a year on the road. But anyway, all of this was part of a much larger development plan, and it was nice to see. I believe they're calling it phase 2 now. There's multi-phases in this plan. If you're going to the ballpark, it might be a bit tough to park because there's a lot of construction going on around there. There's some residential buildings with ground floor retail being built, and I do think that as the years go by, and certainly in the near future, at least for this next phase, you're going to see a lot more activity around the ballpark itself, as opposed to just the activity taking place only inside the ballpark.
Neat. And moving 2 states to the northeast of Hartford, Connecticut, we go to New Hampshire, where they were the Fisher Cats, but when you were there, they were the Manchester Chicken Tenders, which we talked about a little bit last week, but you got to finally witness the ode to the chicken tender there in Manchester, New Hampshire. What was it like being back there? Yeah,
it was great. I hadn't been there since 2015, and that ballpark, Delta Dental Stadium, not dental, but try saying Delta Dental 3 times fast. It is tough. You're just going to start repeating dental after a while. Delta Dental Stadium. I don't want to say gained a new appreciation for that ballpark, but it's not one that when you just see it, it really jumps out at you. But it's interesting because it's along the river. There's train tracks behind it. There's views of downtown Manchester from the ballpark itself. There's that Hilton Garden Hotel in left field where you could literally get a room and watch the game on the deck. So it's a quirky, kind of idiosyncratic ballpark nestled into a very tight, specific area with a lot going on when you really settle yourself and look around. And yes, they played as the Chicken Tenders. That is because, the many things we learn in minor league baseball. In 1974, chicken tenders were invented at the Puritan Backroom restaurant in Manchester, and now chicken tenders are a thing. But that story, I was a little skeptical at first. I think I kind of expressed some skepticism in previous segments, but it really does seem to check out. I interviewed Arthur Pappas, the 3rd generation owner of the Puritan Back Room. He gave me some background on that. He was at the ballpark to throw out a first pitch, and they did sell the Fisher Cats have chicken tenders every night at the ballpark, but I'd say those are usually, run-of-the-mill ballpark chicken tenders. Good if you're looking for chicken tenders, but not chicken tenders to write home about. And I mean, who ever writes home these days about a food item they got at a ballpark? But you might want to write home about the Puritan Backroom chicken tenders, which were for sale at the ballpark. There are 3 primary types of Puritan Backroom chicken tenders: original, buffalo, and coconut. They did not have buffalo at the ballpark, or if they did, it was only in the sweet areas. But I'm with the common people, so I did not get the buffalo. But got some coconut, or my designated eater rather, got some coconut, got some original. The original came with this special Puritan Backroom brand branded duck sauce, and it was a very thin, kind of watery duck sauce. But that's a big thing. You get the duck sauce with the Puritan backroom chicken tenders, but they looked great, really well breaded, great cuts of meat. And in talking to the owner of the restaurant, Arthur Pappas, he was concerned about the promotion because, you know, they sell a lot of chicken tenders at their restaurant, but at the end of the day, it's basically like a large diner, and they don't do things like this to scale. So he was concerned about the scalability of selling them at the ballpark, but they had 10,000 chicken tenders for sale at the ballpark, and I would imagine they sold all of them because that was a sellout that night. It turned out to be a doubleheader, so there was a lot of baseball, but definitely by the time the second game started, it was a full house there, and the lines for the concession stands, whether you're getting chicken tenders or otherwise, they were wrapping all the way through the concourse, which I don't like to see in the sense that people are missing so much of the game, but I do like to see in the sense that so many people came out to have fun at the ballpark on a Saturday night when the chicken tenders were in action.
Yeah, I mean, that's the big part of it, right, is getting people to the ballpark. Hopefully they got to see a bunch of the game too, but tapping into something that is unique to that area and something that, you know, hopefully they learned about too. You know, coming from New England, I didn't know the chicken tender's history with Manchester, New Hampshire. So that was pretty cool to learn about. Moving one more state northeast to start this week, you spent some time in Maine, and not just in Maine. If you're going to be in Maine and you're related to this podcast in any way, you're going to be there with Josh Jackson, which you were. You got a whole tour of southern Maine, I feel like. So what was it like spending the day with Josh? And you guys were supposed to be there for a Portland Sea Dogs game, but learning a little bit more than just about the Sea Dogs.
Yeah, absolutely. I got to Maine, to Brunswick, where Josh lives, on Monday night, and we walked around, and I wish I remembered the name of the river, but we walked to a river where the sturgeon were really jumping, and these huge sturgeon were just jumping up in the air and splashing back down. And then from there, we crossed a bridge into another county, I believe it was Topsham County, and went to the Sea Dog Brewery, no relation to the Sea Dogs. And I was like, well, I'm in Maine, I got to get a lobster roll, and they even had a gluten-free option. And Josh was like, prepare for some sticker shock. And I was like, I'm in Maine. Their lobsters are cheaper here. That lobster roll was $38. Ooh. But, you know, when in Rome, when in Maine, when in Portland, or when in that area, you know, no regrets. And then the whole next day before we went to the ballpark, Josh, a Maine native, you know, who lived in New York City, who lived in Los Angeles, and now he's back in Maine. He took a lot of time and pride in showing me around. We went to an iconic lighthouse. There was a food truck, and I was like, I get a lobster roll. It was like $40. I think I lost a lot of money on this trip.
And market prices will get you on New England seafood. Oh,
my goodness. But I got 2 lobster rolls, one on Monday, one on Tuesday. We also went, as part of our sightseeing trip, we went to Old Orchard Beach and saw the Old Orchard Beach ballpark, which is the home of the Maine Guides, a AAA International League team from 1984 to 1988. They then moved to Scranton-Wilkes-Barre, or technically Moosic, Pennsylvania, and became the Scranton-Wilkes-Barre Red Barons. But before they were there, they were in Old Orchard Beach. And that ballpark was pretty well kept up. I mean, I'm sure not to professional AAA standards, but certainly in its ability to still host baseball games. I believe they still have concerts. So it was great to see that ballpark, great to visit an iconic lighthouse. What else did we do? We did a lot, but it's all kind of blurring together. But we ultimately went to Hadlock Field, home of the Sea Dogs. I hadn't been there since 2015, and that was a lot of fun. It felt like the way I used to be on the road a little bit more, where, you know, spending time on the radio. Did a between inning with Emma Tiedemann. It was great to meet her.
Yeah, yep.
You know, great broadcaster, and great to see her in action and spend some time on the air with her. You know, tangent upon tangent, but you know, an issue we were kind of running into during my segment on the radio is the pitch clock. I think is very positive in a lot of ways in keeping the game moving, but I am noticing that we'll have to talk to more broadcasters about this. It is tougher to interview someone during an inning break, or even as a broadcaster to stretch out one of your own anecdotes, because the pitches come fast and furious. Speaking of coming fast and furious, the Lobsters were coming fast and furious in the lobster toss, in which, in typical minor league baseball fashion, team employees wearing yellow fisherman raincoats have lobsters on lacrosse sticks, and they were flinging them at Josh and I, and we had to catch them in a lobster crate. And we were successful in that endeavor. And speaking of crates and carts, one is being rolled by us right now, so excuse the audio difficulties. It is tough to do a podcast segment when there are food service workers, roller coasters, a baseball stadium, the ocean, and just the general fun and sun of Coney Island in June. But I had a great time at Portland. Had a great time in that between inning contest, a great time on the radio. Spoke to Jimmy, an 87-year-old usher. Gonna write up a little story on him. And I spoke not with Slugger, because he of course cannot speak with the mascot, but I spoke with someone who was intimately familiar with Slugger and how he operates. and I'm going to do a story on Slugger, because if you've been paying attention to minor league baseball, he's been doing some of the best mascot work in the game for the last couple seasons. Really great skits, sketches, between inning stuff with a lot of humor, props, kind of silent movie, vaudeville, Charlie Chaplin type style. Really appreciative of that. So really glad to get talk to someone close to him, and so I can write a story on the mascot. So great time in Portland, and long drive back to New York City yesterday, and then bam, we have this work outing today here in Coney Island. So I still kind of feel like I'm half on the road, and it's been fun. We just went on the Cyclone roller coaster, and we're going to go to a game tonight, and I paid $17 for a frozen pina colada.
All of that is true. I feel like we've given everybody the sounds of Coney Island, of what it is like to be around a game. You're talking about the crate going past us. There are cars going by us. There's a roller coaster beyond us. People walking by us in the alley. We're giving you the sounds of what it is like to see a Cyclones game. Speaking of which, we should probably head in ourselves. But it was one of my favorite road trips when you go to nearby my hometown.
I did drive by a sign for Palmer.
Yes, and you kept going, as most people do.
I did, but I did note the birthplace of Sam Dykstra.
Yes.
Sign. So, there was one. There really was. You think I'm joking?
No, I know there. I'm sure there was. Knowing where you went, I'm sure there were signs for Palmer. But anyway.
No, a sign for you. It said the birthplace of Sam Dykstra.
Yes, that is.
But now motorcycles are going.
Motorcycle. What I was going to say is, not only my favorite time of road trips when you go to New England, but also when you come back and there's like 15 stories that are going to carry you and us, not through just this podcast, but the stuff you write. So lots more to come from New England. But until then, Ben, thank you for joining us here in this alley in Coney Island. And we'll catch you next week.
Yeah, it's been great talking to you, Sam, as it always is. And this is a memorable segment. And I think we had a good time doing it. And we're going to go have a blast at the Coney Island the Brooklyn Cyclones in Coney Island. Woo!
All right, here's Josh Jackson with Ghosts of the Miners. We interrupt this podcast to bring you another thrilling edition of Ghosts of the Miners. Now, here's your correspondent and host, Joshua Jackson.
Welcome back to Ghosts of the Miners, in which all of you out there in Radioland must identify the legitimate historical ball club hiding amidst the fraudulent pair. One was a real hardball club. You can't even find soft evidence of the others. In the last segment, I asked you which of the following minor league baseball teams did at one time exist. A. The Sand Lake Steelheads. B. The Corpus Christi Crispy Snappers. C. The Taunton Herrings. Well, I gave you a couple red herrings, but you just may have been wise enough to pick C. The Taunton Herrings, who floundered about the New England League and the Colonial League in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, representing the seat of Massachusetts' Bristol County, where to this day the Taunton River has a noteworthy herring run. Baseball's Taunton Herrings weren't exactly shark bait, but I'm afraid they were a small fish in a not very big pond. The Herrings name was used for other Taunton sports clubs, such as the Taunton Herrings Cycling Club and the Taunton Herrings Polo Club, previously in the 19th century. But you never smelt the herrings on the diamond until 1897. But it was in 1899 that Taunton taught the sporting world its importance, as that Herrings team boasted an 18-year-old right-hander making his pro debut out of Bucknell University, Christy Mathewson. Mathewson went an unseemly 2-13 for Taunton, but even as the Herrings sunk and stunk, they did nothing to 86 Big Six, who was pitching for the New York Giants the next season. The Herrings, meanwhile, went the way of the dodo from 1900 until they resurfaced in the Colonial League in 1914 and 1915. The Colonial League was aligned with the Federal League, the third major league of the era. But the Feds couldn't bail out the debt-flooded herrings or the spinning out of control Fall River Spindles. Both clubs folded by mid-July. And that's how the herrings went belly up. Now, on to the question for next time. Which of these flyboys tried to take off in the minors of yesteryear? A, the Renton Air Rockets. B, the Dayton Aviators. C, the Kitty Hawk Cloudbusters. Want to know the answer? Spread your wings and fly. Or tune into the next Ghosts of the Miners. But for now, you'll have to excuse me. My producer Ben Hill is opening a hamburger joint, and his neighbors have beef.
Isn't that applause for Ghosts of the Miners? These people love Josh Jackson.
You're the one who edits this, so do you ever, like, if you particularly enjoy a ghost, you just let the
let it roll out
go?
for a little bit longer. Yeah, I think like that deserves a longer. Listen to these people. Listen to this crowd.
You also control when people laugh.
Unbelievable.
You know, like
Sam, this is a live studio audio. I don't know what you're talking about that I control when people laugh. This is Josh is doing this. Much like Wait, Don't Tell Me. He's in a theater up there in Portland, Maine. Every time. Josh should invent a fake theater in which we're gonna kill this crowd now. Josh should invent a fake theater in which he is doing this show.
Or we should invest in a theater.
Yeah, that would be even cooler.
Yeah. As if we're rolling here in money, but
just all of us pitching in to purchase a theater in which Josh tries to regale people with 3.5 minute long segments about minor league baseball teams of yore. All of you can buy these seats. They're $180 each, and you can come in for a 3-minute show. Sounds terrific to me, actually.
I mean, it's kind of like the Lake Obi-Wan or what Obigon. What was it? Wobegon.
Yeah, Wobegon.
Lake Wobegon. Yeah.
Yeah.
You just turned Brunswick, Maine.
Yeah, I think it sounds like a great idea. MILB.TV is your place to catch all the top talent across minor league baseball. Sam, what are you watching this week and next week on MILB TV?
Yeah, so we didn't talk about this promotion in Three Strikes almost because I didn't want to make it too Orioles centric, but I will loop back to the O system now to point you guys to Syracuse at Norfolk coming up next week, because Gunnar Henderson, the number 3 prospect in the Orioles system, has been promoted to AAA Norfolk. He did such a great job at AA Bowie. Got it to a point now where we are talking about him as, not just a top 100 prospect, a top 50 prospect, maybe even a top 25 prospect with what he's done at Bowie, hitting .312. He's got an OPS above 1,000 at 1.025, 8 homers on the year, 12 stolen bases. It's switched on this a little bit of late, but he still left Bowie with more walks than strikeouts, 41 walks, 38 strikeouts, which is not something we typically talk about with guys who can be above average 2+ sluggers like he can. He's just kind of an average runner, but he's making it play, certainly so far this year with that aggression at AA. Fascinated to see how that's going to transfer to AAA. He's going up with Jordan Westberg, so I still expect him to split time between shortstop and third base. The O's are trying to find how those guys are going to shake out on the infield. But this will be a chance to catch those guys next week. Tyler, what are you watching?
I am actually going to stick in that Mets organization and go with the Binghamton Rumble Ponies, who are home against New Hampshire coming up this weekend. That Binghamton team is so stacked. We've talked a lot about Francisco Alvarez and Brett Beatty and Ronnie Mauricio being on that team this year. All 3 of those guys are top 100 guys. 3 of the Mets 4 top 100 guys. There's only 1 top 100 prospect on the other side, and Aurelius Martinez for the Blue Jays with New Hampshire. But Alvarez, Beatty, and Mauricio have been so much fun to watch already this season. Those guys have been hot as of late, and you can catch them. They'll also be on the road at Bowie coming up next week. And you can listen to Adam Pohl do the broadcasts for the Bowie Baysox, and he's one of my favorite human beings in minor league baseball. So that's always a treat as well. I was tempted to go with Amarillo just to say like, you never know, you might catch me sitting in the crowd. If
you go, you have to like make an appearance in the back.
I do. I have to dive comically for a foul ball or,
Well, I was just going to say, post up behind home plate and hold up a sign that says, listen to the show before the show.
Tune into the show before the show.
Yeah.
Every
Download
week
link
at MILB.com. Subscribe on your favorite podcast services. I think it'd be pretty cool, actually.
I'm just
good
saying.
Viral marketing. It's like the Washington State flag on College game day. We should just get somebody to go to every minor league game that has a good look at the spot behind home plate. And, we'll make that work. Are there any, I don't think there are any ballparks anymore in which I feel like Pawtucket was the last one in which you really didn't get a shot of anybody behind home plate. McCoy Stadium had the old school, like the elevated seating bowl. I don't think there's anywhere like that anymore.
I don't. Nothing immediately comes to mind. There might be some people.
Park. What we're saying is people need to show up with signs that say, "Listen to the show before the show."
If you do, we will gladly retweet you from the Milled account. And
absolutely.
If you can do it, like you've done this too, Tyler. I've met listeners at the ballpark.
Yeah.
People come up and say like, "Hey, love listening to the show every week." If you can somehow get the show before the show reference on the broadcast.
Yeah.
And provide us evidence, we will gladly, spread the love.
Absolutely. So that'll do it for this week's episode of the show before the show. For Sam Dykstra and Benjamin Hill and Josh Jackson, my name is Tyler Maughan. We'll talk to you next week.